All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back to finish out day number 20 of Donald Trump's hush money trial, where the prosecution, the defense, and the judge are hashing out the jury instructions. And of course, we get to hear everything that is said in the courtroom today, thanks to our guy on the inside, Inner City Press, who is reporting from inside the courtroom and giving us a look at everything that is going on, what the judge is saying, what the prosecution is saying, and yes, of course, what Trump's defense is saying. But as far as I know, today is the last day in the courtroom until closing arguments next Tuesday and the jury deliberations that are expected to start on Wednesday. Well, let's go back into the courtroom where we have the defense, the prosecution, and the judge hashing out these jury instructions. So we're back for the charging conference, and Judge Bertrand says, "I want to thank you for the submissions I have received." And the prosecution says, "In the 4 transmittals, there were 6 joint submissions." And Trump's lawyer, Amil Bove, says the FECA predicate has to be a criminal FECA violation. And the prosecutor says, "We oppose including any heightened intent standard. The legislature chose the word unlawful, no more." And Amil Bove says the case the people cite is a civil case, not a criminal case. And Judge Bertrand says falsifying business records in the first degree requires another crime. How do you respond, prosecution? And the prosecution says conspiracy is enough. So this vague, nebulous term, conspiracy. I guess that's their second crime that upgrades this misdemeanor to a felony. Very interesting. But Amil Bove responds and he says, there has to be a criminal object. What is this? And Bertrand says, I will reserve decision on that, but I will strike the defense language about in 2016, a candidate could give as much as he or she wanted. And Amil Bove says, these are issues we would have gotten to in our proposed witness, Smith. And at the defense table, Amil Bove is in lead counsel seat with Blanche next to him. Trump is between Blanche and Susan Nichols. And Judge Bertrand says, it is proposed, quote, if the payment would have been made even in the absence of candidacy, end quote, it is not a contribution. And he continues, let me strike the phrase legitimate press function. The prosecutor says the FEC found that AMI acted outside that exemption. And Amil Bove says AMI had a large transaction in escrow, and it was settled, and they did things for Karen McDougal. And Steinglass, prosecutor Steinglass, comes in. He says, you have already instructed the jury about Mr. Cohen's guilty plea. You can do it again, and we'd like to use participate, not was convicted of. And Judge Bertrand says, if the defense crosses the line, summation, I can give an instruction. While I appreciate the defense's argument, I again am going to follow the pattern instructions. And Amil Bove says there is a problem with two-step accessorial liability causing a causer to cause. And the prosecution says there's a case where jumper cable caused false business records at the power company. And Judge Bertrand says, in the submission I received today at 1:02 p.m., it is proposed that presence while the other commit the crime does not in itself mean a crime. And the prosecution argues, well, the Trump Tower meeting shows more than mere presence. It shows participation. And Amil Bove says, we disagree. Campaigns have done this for decades. This is an important case. We have a motion pending. This case attempts to use statutes in ways for which there is no precedent. So we think the jury should be made aware of these specific findings. And Judge Bertrand says, I'm not going to change the law. Let's take a break. And apparently, this is not a crowded courtroom because this is not a very interesting part of the proceedings, but they're back. And by the way, we're covering it anyways, because I promise I'll cover the entire trial. So Judge Bertrand says, that's pretty much what I had. Anything else? And Bove says, yes, we suggest an instruction on bias against President Trump. And the prosecution says, we don't think this is necessary. The voir dire satisfied this, or look at our page 17 through 18. And Judge Bertrand says, I will go along with the people's language. And now Amil Bove says the jurors should be told that hush money is not in itself illegal. And Judge Bertrand says, you can argue that in the closing. And Bove says, evidence not coming in for truth, we want to list them. And Trump's lawyer Bove continues. For example, the RNC's reaction to the Access Hollywood tape. And the prosecution butts in, no instruction. It's the impact on the defendant of John McCain withdrawing his endorsement. No instruction. And Judge Bertrand says, I'm in agreement with the people. Surprise, surprise. I think, Judge Bertrand, you're in agreement with the people on just about everything in this trial. Entirely. And now Amil Bove says, we'd like an involvement of counsel instructions when President Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, told him that the lawyers of AMI said the Karen McDougal contract was bulletproof. And Judge Bertrand says, the court will not say that, and the defense won't. I find this argument disingenuous. Sit down. And Amil Bove says, you called me disingenuous? I am trying to make an argument. And Judge Bertrand says, I've heard it for months. You will not make that argument to the jury. So keep me informed by email. Closing arguments are Tuesday. Court is adjourned. So there we have it, guys. Court is adjourned. Day 20 of trial. And we are going into closing arguments on Tuesday. And of course, Judge Bertrand, once again, is siding with the prosecution on virtually everything, allowing the jury instructions to be drafted in a way where it's as nebulous and as vague as possible. So the jury can just be like, this might be a crime. This might be a crime. I'm not really sure. I can't really get into the specifics because I really don't know. But, Donald Trump probably committed a crime. That's what the jury is going to be thinking, because the defense was not allowed to bring in an expert witness on FEC violations. And so this jury, I don't know. I still kind of lean towards this idea that I believe the jury, when seeing Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, I believe they might do the right thing. And at the very least, I think it's going to come down to a hung jury. But I guess we shall see. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Donald Trump is going to be found guilty or not guilty? And do you think it's going to be a hung jury, or do you think it's going to be the entire jury? Let me know down below in the comments what you think. Like and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.